It's going to get messy in here. Welcome to KIRSTIcast, the show where we hope to illuminate, entertain, and engage our listeners, helping them create the life they want. I'm your host, Kirsti Manna. Hey everybody, welcome to KIRSTIcast. I'm your host, Kirsti Manna, and I'm here today with Bill Warner, the mad scientist I like to call him. He's running the show, as I like to say. I couldn't do all this without Bill's help. I have no idea what's going on technically. You know me. I've had this discussion with you before. So today, we're going to be talking, Bill, about being messy. And
that doesn't apply to me in any way.
Bill's a little bit messy. Yeah, Bill, you are.
I really aspire to be neat at all times. It just doesn't always work out that way.
You know, for those of you listening out there or watching out there, if those of you that live with a man, don't you think that sometimes they are messy? I never hear about men complaining about women being messy. I just thought I'd mention that. But we don't have to belabor the thought, Bill. We don't have to go into that. Did you have anything to say about that?
No, I'm just letting it go.
Right, because you know I'm not messy.
Well, no, you're not.
Yeah.
No, you're what they call a neatnik.
I am a neatnik. But you know, the guest that I have today on Shero Spotlight is somebody that has said it's going to get messy. And she was referring to yoga practice. I've loved taking classes with her, and we're going to talk a little bit about yoga a little bit later in the show with her. But what she means was, you know, it's going to get messy. Like if you're practicing yoga and you start to fall out of a pose. If anybody is out there that is a yoga person, a yogi, you know what I mean. You're trying to perfect a pose and it just isn't happening. And what happens? You fall over. It gets pretty messy. But life has been pretty messy for these last 5 to 6 months. It's been really tough. It's been tough in Nashville, not only with the pandemic, but because I think we're celebrating a 6-month anniversary of these deadly tornadoes that we had occur back in the spring. And we're still putting the city back together with that. It's still kind of messy for a lot of people. So what do you do when things get messy? Well, for me, I like to pray. I like to pray about life feeling messy. And that makes me feel a lot better to have faith that it's going to get better. You know, and life is real, right? It's going to be messy. Things are going to happen that are out of our control. So what do we want to do when things get messy? Well, you want to try to remember that it's not going to stay this way forever. It does not define you. It's just something that you're going through when things get messy. And for those of you out there that are raising kids, I'm not raising kids, but for those of you that are raising kids, your lives can be really, really complicated. You know, making everything happen with your kids, getting them to where they need to be, school, virtual school, all the stuff that goes on. For those of you that maybe don't have kids but have pets like us, it can get messy. And we're going to discuss the messy part of cats a little bit later. But what makes you feel powerful? Those are the kinds of things that you can be doing when life feels messy. You can be thinking about what makes you feel powerful. And you have to remember that this is going to take some time for things to straighten out. I also think one thing you can do when life feels messy is you can just get out of that space of that. Maybe just walk outside and find some beauty in life. Find some joy in nature. I'm always talking about, you know, how to find the joy in something. And I also think finding the gratitude, you know, the count the blessings, a blessing in disguise, all that kind of stuff. I think that's really important to remember that when life starts to get messy. Just remember that you can't control every single thing that's going on in your life every minute of every day. It's out of your control. So just try to make the best of it because you're the best to yourself when you're making the best of something. Hope those tips helped you. We're going to be right back with the Shero Spotlight. Stay tuned for the Shero Spotlight. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Shero Spotlight segment. I'm so excited tonight to have this wonderful person as a guest. I first met her when my friend invited me to go to her yoga class, which I loved and have not been back to because of the COVID, but I have taken some classes with her virtually, so it's kind of like, it's almost like being there. Well, she is a soon-to-be 500-hour registered yoga teacher and owner of Heart and Light Yoga, which is in Hermitage, Tennessee, which is just outside of Nashville. So if anybody listening lives in this area, you need to check out her class. She's also a certified career life coach and a member of the International Coaching Federation and the Coaching Federation of Tennessee. And coaching and teaching yoga are a great combination for her, she says, to help people navigate the transitions in their lives. And she's known to many, I love this, I didn't know this, as Snow White because of her love of nature and any kind of animal. And as a yoga teacher and life coach, she has an ability to see people where they are and hold space for them to grow into their greatness. That's really a beautiful thought. I like that a lot. She creates a safe space to explore and expand what you can do on your mat, which I've heard her say many times in class. Please welcome to the show, Dawn Staudt.
Hi, thank you for
thanks so
having
much
me.
for being here. Well,
Absolutely.
I just have to say it's quite an honor to have you here because and I actually did a podcast about this about a month ago about transitions, because I really think transitions are such a difficult thing in life. And to me, that's the thing that takes the longest. I remember when my father became diagnosed with dementia and just all the transitioning of that. It took 2 or 3 years for us to really get through it. So I really appreciated when you talked about that in class. But I wanted to ask you first, what inspired you to become a yoga teacher?
It's kind of a funny story. I've been very active in working out, Pilates, ballet, Zumba, you name it, my whole life. And oftentimes I would get asked if I wanted to teach. Mm-hmm. And I just never had the desire to teach. You know, if I'm not the teacher and I decide I don't want to go to class, that's fine because I'm not the teacher, you know, so I didn't really want to commit. But I worked at a company and I worked with a girl and she just was not a happy person. And, you know, she was fine. We were friendly, but she was just not very happy and difficult to work with. And then I changed roles within the company. So I didn't really interface with her that much. Mm-hmm. And I read a newsletter where she was offering free yoga classes. And I thought, well, this is funny because she's really not that nice. So I kind of want to go and see what this is about. Like, I can't imagine her teaching yoga. Like, it's so, anti where she was at the time.
Okay.
And her class was amazing. And so I ended up going every week and just fell in love with her and the person that she had grown into. And I just thought, I never really thought I wanted to teach, but what I did want was to experience that change that she had made, to be put in a situation where I could face all of my demons and come out the other side just a beautiful human being like she is. Yeah. And so that's really where it started. I had not ever even been to the studio. I trained at Epic Yoga in Brentwood, and I had never been to the studio. I signed up for teacher training. It was accepted. And I went to a class. I thought I should, before I give them a lot of money, I should see if I even like it, and fell in love with that type of practice and with that studio. And that's where it started. But I never intended to teach at all.
Yeah.
And I ended up being asked to sub at work and then a couple other classes. And it was like, well, I'm not really teaching. I'm just the sub. And then fast forward 5 years later, and I owned a studio. So.
Oh, that's so great. Well, and isn't it interesting too, for those of us that always thought, we would never teach or be interested in teaching. And then I think you find as a person, as you grow in yourself, that you have things that you want to share with other people. And that's where the teaching desire, I think, comes in,
Yeah. I want everyone to experience what I experience on my mat. That kind of joy and peace, and to find, kind of reconnect with your inner child in a way. And I feel like yoga can change the world one person at a time. And, I want to be a part of that. And so that's really where that stemmed from. But my intention when I went through teacher training was not to teach necessarily.
Yeah. Well, you really have made me feel like every single person in your class is certainly so welcome at whatever level they are at, wherever they're at emotionally or physically or whatever in their life. And I think that's really nice, because it's so non-judgmental. And of course, yoga is a really difficult personal kind of journey.
It really is. And that's like the biggest compliment you can pay to me, because that's all I ever really wanted to do, was to really create a space that was safe for everyone at all levels.
Yeah.
And I think we've created a really nice community, and it's been fun growing with everyone.
Sure. Well, I studied with an acting coach that, this part of your bio, creating a safe space. And he used to always say it's a safe place, when we were studying and meditating and working on our sense memory and all that. And I will never forget that, because that kind of thing, and I've told you this before, that coming to your classes was the closest thing I ever did to those acting classes. And that was one of the most euphoric times of my creative life. So, I really appreciate that. So how do you weave your life coaching into your yoga classes? What do you like to do?
They really pair really well together. I've found coaching through yoga. I found a coach that I used to work with through yoga and through my yoga training, and they pair really well together, because usually when you're dealing with something, it shows up on your mat. So like right now, everybody feels out of balance and unsure and unsteady. And so likely on your mat, you are trying to do a standing balance pose, and you're all over the place because your mat is a mirror to your life. And so it's usually, I like to try to theme my classes as much as I can. And it's usually based on what's happening in my life or what I see happening in my circle of friends. And you can take a pose, like if I'm talking about balance and finding balance in your work-life balance or your life in general, your family obligations, I can weave that into a practice of balance poses and talk you through it. So they pair so nicely together. And it's oftentimes based on what we are all dealing with in our life.
Right.
It's been a little bit difficult, I think, during this pandemic, because I don't want every week to be talking about the pandemic.
Right. Well, and it's like all we say in here, right? So
yeah,
I don't feel like we have some kind of obligation to acknowledge it.
Right. And so, I've tried to, certainly there have been times when it was needed and certainly needed to be spoken about. But for the most part, I have been trying to stay away from that, veer away from that, and look to the future.
Yeah.
A little bit more. And or also, like, the other thing is really being with what is, being present and being with what is. I think a lot of times where our discomfort comes in is when we are wishing it was something it wasn't, or wishing it was something it used to be, or wishing it was what we thought it was going to be. And that's where you get the tension, but being in the moment and finding what really is happening for real.
Yeah. Well, and remembering too that it's not defining us each individually. It's going to get better. It's going to move on. The whole experience of the pandemic has taught me a lot about myself. So that's one thing I feel like I'm going to come out of on the other side, is that, what have I learned about me? And that's,
it forced me to slow down a little bit.
Oh, really?
And which is good, but it also forced me, one of the things in yoga that we talk about is being committed to your practice. And being present in every breath. So that means finding joy in things like washing the dishes or folding the laundry. And when you're super busy, your mind is wandering. It's thinking about the next, then the next, then the next.
Yeah.
And so how many times have you gotten in your car and thought, did I turn the stove off? Like
oh
things
yeah,
like that,
yeah.
because you're not present. And you can find a lesson and a joy in every moment. And it really hit me in the beginning of stages of the pandemic when we were focused on washing our hands more often. And they said for 20 seconds, which is, you sing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, you sing Happy Birthday. And so I just found myself really present as I sang out loud Happy Birthday every time I washed my hands, and just got into the moment and just found the joy in that moment. Like I loved singing Happy Birthday to myself every time I washed my hands.
That's great.
And
yeah.
so then I'm like, oh, I get it. Like when I'm here and I'm fully in this moment, I can find joy in it.
Yeah.
And that's the lesson, that when your type A brain is going, you miss all those little nuances along the way.
Mm-hmm. No, that's really true. That's a really good example. The thing about washing our hands, what I thought you were going to say was, and I'm standing there washing my hands for 20 seconds. I'm like, this is taking too long. Because at first, when they were saying, I mean, I've always heard that sing Happy Birthday. And when you were like really commanded to do it, it was like, this feels like I'm in.
Yeah, the first few times for sure. And then I'm like, oh, wait, you're supposed to sing Happy Birthday. I remembered that from when I was a kid. And then it was fun to find other songs that were 20 seconds long.
Yeah.
And so my husband and I would have competing song lists, every time we washed our hands. And it just became this fun thing. Like then, it wasn't such a burden,
Yeah, that's good. I really like that. Well, what I mentioned this when we first came on is one class that really impacted me was the one about transitioning. And I thought, wow, when you said that, that really made so much sense to me in yoga. And I remember that night at that class that I really, was thinking about the transition of how am I going to get from point A to point B, because sometimes you do fall over or you fall out or all those things in yoga. And I expect that to happen. But what is a piece of advice for someone who is transitioning in their life or their career? What's something that you like to say to people?
Let go of the need to control, which is the lesson that I had to learn. Let go of the need to know how the outcome is going to be, and also the attachment to the outcome.
Right.
Like, you think on your mat when you could step forward or you could jump forward. A lot of people don't try the jump because what if, right?
Yeah.
But when you let go of the need to control, the need to know, the need to make sure that everything will unfold as you thought it was, when you let go of that, then you are free to just be in the moment and trust the journey.
Well, I remember when you said that.
Maybe you do fall, but.
Yeah. I remember one time in class you said to the class, jump. If you don't usually jump. And I thought, okay, well, she knows about jumping. I'm just going to jump, okay, I'm going to go for it. But I'm kind of I'm not an athlete by any stretch, but I'm kind of a little bit of a risk taker with stuff like that, because I feel like if I'm here and I'm putting myself in this situation, then I'm going to try to challenge myself. I just think that it's fun to do that. Well, that's good advice. So I'm going to ask you this then, in the midst of, how do we ask people to transition? What's one yoga pose that you think challenges most of your students?
Yeah. So I think like challenging yoga poses really depend on the person, because each pose will teach you a lesson. So it kind of, everybody has their nemesis pose. Like you get in chair pose and you hear as many groans as you do cheers, but the one pose that seems to be universal that people are afraid to try it is crow. And that's where you balance your knees on your forearms or up into your armpits with either bent arms or straight arms. And that is one, even though you're only, this far off the ground, your brain risk assesses. So as a kid, you'd be like, yeah, sure, whatever. You try it. But as an adult, your brain's like, well, you could lose your teeth and you wore braces and could end up with a black eye, or you could look stupid, or your arms aren't strong enough. That's the one I hear the most, is my arms aren't strong enough. And the reality is your arms have nothing to do with it. It's all your core. But that's one that people will either just throw caution to the wind and try, or will never try.
Yeah.
You've been in class when we've all fallen.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's fine as long as you turn your head so you don't lose your teeth. But
Right.
that seems to be like a pose, and it's usually in the center of the practice somewhere in flows, so that you're warmed up. And so it could be, a sign of you're transitioning from one part of your life to the next. I mean, there's a lot of messages in the yoga poses.
Yeah.
And they can all teach you, but a lot of people don't like chair, and a lot of people, myself included, struggled with warrior poses for a long time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think it depends on the person and where they are in their life and their practice.
Yeah. I remember being at, I, of course, came to your class and to some other yoga classes with Lorraine Downing. And so I remember the first time I went to a class and I was doing downward facing dog, and the teacher said, "Oh, you're going to find this as a resting pose." I'm like, she's got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
But it ended up being that way,
Right.
I mean, after you understood.
Yeah.
And of course, Lorraine and I always joke about chair,
Yes.
I like that pose, but we always have a laugh about chair, chair.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, I
amazing.
taught a class last night, and one of the students hates chair and one of the students loved chair. And so they were laughing at each other, about their opinions, their very strong opinions about chair.
Yeah. Yeah. It's tough. It's tough. So tell us one of your stay inspired stories. I would love to hear one of those from you.
Yeah, so my parents are entrepreneurs, so they've always owned their own businesses. And I don't know that I got this lesson when I was younger and living with them, but certainly in hindsight as an adult, I watched them build several businesses from the ground up. And it didn't matter if they truly knew what they were doing, or, they never sat back and said, well, we can't do this. We don't know how. I remember the last business they started was a charter bus company. And I'm like, what do you know about buses? And Dad's like, nothing, but we'll figure it out. Someone had suggested it to them, and they was like, yeah, that's a great idea. And they did. They did it scared. They did it unprepared. I had a yoga mentor say, action creates possibility. And I watched that in real time with my parents. They just did it, and they figured it out. And I don't know if they were fully prepared or if they were experts in the field at the time, but they made sure they became that way. And to me, it's always been really inspiring to just, sometimes you look at a job, or even opening a yoga studio during a pandemic, you're like, I don't know, how would I know how to do that? Or people who start charities, I would have no idea, who do you contact? How do you get the word out? They just did it. They didn't try to figure it out or overthink it, or certainly back then they didn't have Google. Like now I can just Google everything, but
right.
They just did it. And so for me, that is when I get stuck in the feeling of I'm not smart enough, or I'm not good enough, or I don't have the tools or the resources. I just put that aside and just remember and just do it.
Yeah. I think that's a good point you make about how, you hear these stories or watch documentaries about people that started some business that became this gazillion-dollar business, and they started, in their basement, and there was no Google, and there were no cell phones or TVs or things like that. And they had a passion. And so that's, that to me is the biggest thing is, when you have a passion. And I'm always saying that to people, I've said that to, kids that I've worked with, at Songwriter Girl and other places where I've worked with songwriters, is it's just about having a joy and a passion for something. When people don't know what to do with themselves, it's like, well, what really flips your switch? What makes you feel good?
Right.
And I think that's what makes it exciting. That's nice that your parents instilled that in you. That's really cool. I love that. So if you could live anywhere in the world, because I came to one of those vision board classes with you, and I love those kinds of things. You feel like you're 10 and you're cutting magazine pictures, like we used to do. If you could live anywhere in the world, where would you like to live?
The last 2 summers, my husband and I had the opportunity with his job to travel to the south of France, like the Côte d'Azur area. So southern Italy and southern France. And boy, I fell in love with the place. And we joked while we were there about moving to Antibes, France.
Wow.
And it's kind of an ancient city, and it's still very rural and right on the water. And so, yeah, I think if I could be somewhere in that Mediterranean, Italy or France area, I'd go.
Yeah, I know. I love Siena. It just,
Oh, yeah.
there's something about that city that feels so authentic to me, for me.
Mhm.
And I have Italian people that are Italian relatives in my dad's side.
Yeah.
And so it's really cool to think that, you could be walking the streets of where some of your relatives could have been. But I romanticize about that kind of stuff all the time.
Yes.
That's
My
cool.
brother, my mom's side of the family is all from Italy. And
Oh, really?
when he was traveling years ago, he found relatives and looked them up. And of course they're distant relatives, but they
Oh,
took
how
him
neat.
in and fed him, and he stayed there in outside of Florence, Italy. And so, yeah, so I do too.
Oh,
I'm like, I'll look them up and knock on some doors.
oh, that's so great. I love
Yeah.
that. How exciting. That's cool. Well, I always ask all of my guests this question. What is your power word?
So it's interesting that you asked that. Every year I choose a word to represent how I want to show up in that year, how I want to feel, how I want to judge the things that I do in the world. And I usually just get it from the heart. So usually I go to a yoga class, and it's usually on the winter solstice. And we do 108 sun salutations. And it bubbles up. And some years I don't like the word. Like last year's word was committed. And I was like,
I don't think so.
am I going to a mental hospital? Like, what's happening here? But it ended up being the word, because a lot of times when things get hard, I want it to run. And so it was the word. And this year, oddly enough, I did it last December 21st. And I always keep a Post-it note and a pen, and I'm writing words that my mind wants to be my word. But then eventually it bubbles up from deep inside, and you watch yourself write it, and you know that that's the word from your soul. And oddly enough, for 2020, my word was hope.
Oh, that's nice.
And so, the decisions that I make in my businesses and in my life and how I want to show up is hopeful. Funny that 2020 kind of took a serious turn.
Yeah.
But that has kept me, like that is, my word. I have to keep reminding myself to be hopeful.
Yeah. Well, but anybody that is in your presence, you've never coached me on life or career, and I know it would be a great experience. But your classes feel like that. They feel, like you're getting this individual coaching. And I mean, you're talking to all of your students, but it's just the greatest experience. And I hope that everybody listening can take a class with you. And I don't know why they couldn't, because they can take a virtual class.
Everything is virtual now. Yeah. It's hard to live in the two-dimensional world. I've been on Zoom meetings all day today, and then I'll teach a Zoom class, and but we still try to create that sense of community. We talk a little bit beforehand and see how everybody's doing, and we talk a little bit afterwards. But in a way, it's kind of nice. I've had new students come that have been intimidated to come to a studio, but when you're practicing in your own home, and the only person who can really see you is me to make corrections, it's easier, like you can try it on and see what it feels like. I've had people trying different classes, different styles that they might not have done before. And then, loving it and coming back. So I certainly hope people will give it a try. We all need a lot of yoga right now.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The biggest thing that I think we need right now is breathing. Just the in and out. I wrote a song once called I Need a Moment. And it came from going to this really funny acting audition. And so in that song, there's a part where I say in with the good, out with the bad, in with the good, out with the bad, and then I get the audience to do it. And they're always looking around at each other like, am I supposed to be doing in with the good, out with the bad? I'm like, people, it helps,
Yes. I mean, it's funny because in the beginning when the virtual classes started, you could see, when you have a collective anxiety, even if you yourself feel fine, you are feeling the weight of the collective anxiety. And it was interesting. We always, in every class now, we've been starting with like a short meditation or a short breathing, and to see everybody's body just slowly relax and see them take maybe the deepest breath that they had taken all day.
Oh yeah.
And it just changes everything. The breathing and meditation were game changers for me.
Oh yeah. Meditation. I did a lot of that when I studied with that acting coach. And then maybe like 6 or 7 months ago, a friend of mine wanted to do a meditation practice with like 5 or 6 of us, and it was kind of like we were kind of on our own, but we were connected, once a week about it. And that was really, really cool. I love that because I'm a talker and I like to talk and I like to be with people, be communal. And I think it's really important to be quiet. I know
that's when the important messages come up. Yeah. When you can get quiet.
Yeah.
And be still. Yeah.
Yeah. So before we go, I always like to ask people this too. If you could name one thing, if you could finish this sentence, the number one thing I'm grateful for today is?
Family. So my parents live in Maryland and they just bought a house in Tennessee.
Really?
So they are going to be moving here, and I've had probably 20 phone calls just today coordinating. My parents are getting older, and this pandemic, without the ability to travel and stuff, it kind of crossed my mind, like, how long is this going to last? And am I going to see them again in person?
Right.
And so the fact that they are still able, and their house is on the market and they're moving here, and it's just really excited that for holidays and stuff, we can all be together.
Oh yeah. Are they moving to Nashville?
They are moving to Mount Juliet. Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, I lost my mom in April, right before Easter, during a Holy Week. And so that was really a strange thing, because I wasn't able, to go and see her before she passed away. And so
that was my worst fear, really. I'll be honest. Like, I feel for you. My condolences, because that was my worst fear. Or if one of them got sick and I'm so far away
and you couldn't help them. Yeah. Well,
I feel bad now because they're packing up their house that they've lived in since 1974.
Yeah.
Come in and help.
That's a lot of stuff.
In a way I feel bad, and in a way it's fine,
Yeah, it's like they'll call you. Do you want this box? No.
Yes, we're getting a lot of text messages with pictures.
Oh, that's great. I love it. Well, where can people find you online, to sign up for your class and to learn more about your coaching?
So for my yoga studio, Heart and Light Yoga, you can visit the website, which is Heart and Light Yoga, spelled out. I also have an Instagram page, Heart and Light Yoga, and a Facebook page that I try to post to almost daily. And then same for my coaching. My coaching Instagram and Facebook is Dawn Staudt Coaching. Okay. And the website is just dawnstaudt.com.
Okay.
And I am taking new clients for coaching, and it can be life coaching, transitions, career, or it can be career coaching. I've helped a few clients start businesses, change careers completely, or get promoted within your current career, current company. But yeah, they pair very nicely together. So if you come to yoga, you get a little bit of coaching.
You definitely
you get a little bit of coaching on the side. Yeah,
you get some of that definitely from you. Well, it's really been a pleasure to get to talk with you for a little bit. I so respect you and for all the work you're doing, and you've really impacted my life. I thank you and hope that we can practice again really soon. And
it's so great to see you. I've missed you. And
thank you.
Hopefully we can see each other again soon. Thank you so much for having me and letting me speak about my businesses.
Oh, you're welcome. All right, everybody. Let's thank Dawn Staudt again one more time for being here at the Shero Spotlight. She's such a special person. We're going to be right back.
You're my Shero, more than a hero, and I look up to you every single day. Every day, my celebration, my inspiration is to be like you, but in my own way. You're my Shero, more than a hero.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Nash segment, and I want to thank Roxanne Charette for writing You're My Shero with me. That's our Shero Spotlight theme song, in case you haven't figured that out. And Roxanne was actually singing on that track with me, so thanks, Roxanne. It's always fun when we get to hang out together. I miss seeing you. Well, in the Nash segment today, I went to my trusty visitmusiccity.com site to see what was new. And a place that I thought would really go along with my Getting Messy theme was a place that I've never visited in Nashville. I know Bill's never visited in Nashville because we do everything together. I know that sounds really boring, but we really do. And it's not. And we would actually really enjoy this place if we ever went. Can you think of anywhere in Nashville where you can get messy? What do you think, Bill?
Just walk outside.
Very funny. I don't know what that means. But anyway, this place is on the outskirts of town. It's minutes from downtown Nashville, and it's called the Adventure Park. And what's so great about this place is that they also have a virtual attraction on visitmusiccity.com. Bill, get this. They actually have a place where they can guide you through making your own adventure park. Now, our yard isn't big enough for an adventure park, but...
So you get virtually messy?
You can get virtually messy, I guess.
Well,
I think you make the adventure park, you design it, and you go put it outside in your own yard.
Okay.
You know, if you don't want to go to the actual adventure park in Nashville. So anyway, this place has all different kinds of ticket packages. You need to go look at this. I think it's $46 for an adult. For ages 7 to 13, I think it's $38. And then they have an adventure playground for the young adventurers. And there's a cost for that too. I think it's about $18. So you go to the adventure park. You have all different kinds of options of what you can do. You can zip line. You can do tree-to-tree climbing. That sounds kind of interesting.
Haven't done that in a while.
No. Well, the last time I climbed a tree wasn't good. The branch broke and I fell, but we won't get into that part. That wasn't a good part of an adventure. But this place sounds really, really cool. And also, you can spend, a good part of your day there. So if you think this sounds like something you'd love to do with your family, I mean, come on, go get some of the stress worked out, get the kids outside, communing with nature. Sounds like a great time. And the weather in Nashville is going to start cooling off, people. So the fall, I think that would be a great time to go to the adventure park. VisitMusicCity.com is where you can go for any other information about building your own adventure park in your yard. Hope you're going to check it out. One of the best sites about Nashville out there. We're going to be right back with Meow Not Bow Wow.
Meow, not bow wow. Meow, not bow wow. Meow, not bow wow. Meow, not bow wow.
Welcome to Meow Not Bow Wow. Well, if you had to guess if a cat is messy or not messy, what would your guess be? Bill and I know the answer to this question, so it's almost not even fair for me to ask Bill this question, but Bill is the one that mainly deals with the litter pans in our house.
The key is you got to dive deep.
That's
how you get all the treasure.
Digging for the treasures.
Yeah.
Well, I thought about this, in regards to cats. Cats are really fastidious animals. They really like to keep it clean. And in the case of like Henry and Big Fluff, Henry loves to groom Big Fluff. And Big Fluff ends up with these cowlicks all over his fur. And then he doesn't like that because he wants his fur to be laying nice and smooth and flat. And cats are really into grooming themselves. You always see a cat. Cats usually look pretty pulled together, I think. Kind of after my own heart. I like that. But here's something interesting that you may not have known. That kittens who are bottle fed or rescues, who don't have the luxury of hanging out with their litter mates, they have to be taught sometimes how to properly use a litter pan. Because their litter mates, they're watching and learning from their mother cat and their litter mates. Of course, you know that I'm a big spay-neuter advocate, so I don't advocate there being a lot of kittens running and roaming around because, we know the outcome of that. So that's just something I wanted to mention, though, about kittens. If you have a kitten that is coming from a rescue situation, you might have to actually take the kitten's little paw and show it how to dig in the litter pan. Now, the biggest problem with cats and the messiness is when they're getting out of the litter pan. Right, Bill?
Yes, that's when the stray litter gets on the floor.
This is when you can have the litter sticking between their claws and their paws.
It's a scene.
And it's a real scene. And I'm going to tell you the truth. You can try to put those rugs and those litter catcher mats. They do not work. People don't even spend your money on them. They do not work. The best thing to do is just let the cat walk out of the litter pan and then sweep up. Get the dustpan and the broom up and sweep it up. That's the best thing you can do. But another problem you might be having with cats is, why are they missing in the litter pan? Well, that could be because the litter pan isn't big enough for them. So you might want to think about that. If you, like in the case of Henry. Henry weighs 19 pounds. I think he's up to 20 pounds last vet visit. And so, of course, he's an animal that needs a pretty big litter pan if he's going to take care of it the way he needs to. So think about that as well. I hope, though, that if you're thinking about getting a cat, that you actually get two, because 2 cats is definitely better than 1. So think about adopting a cat or a kitten and make sure they're spayed and neutered before you take them home. That's really important. All right, that's all I have to say about litter pans. But is there anything else you wanted to add about litter pans?
No, it's a riveting subject, but I think we've covered the basics.
Well, it's time for me to say goodbye to everybody. I want to thank you so much for being here today with me on KIRSTIcast. Thanks so much to my Shero guest, Dawn. I hope you're going to go check out everything that she does with her life coaching and her yoga training. She's great. Thanks so much to my sponsor, WarnerWorks.net. And also, if you would like to be a guest or you think you have somebody that you would love to suggest as a guest to us here on KIRSTIcast, by all means, email me at info@songwritergirl.com. I'm going to be back next week with KIRSTIcast. Hope you're going to check out, listen, like, and download this podcast anywhere that you get a podcast. Don't forget to watch us on YouTube, Songwriter Girl 1 channel, and whatever you do, stay inspired. You've been listening to KIRSTIcast.